The applause was deafening, a thunderous wave of pride and joy filling the auditorium as the graduates crossed the stage one by one, their smiles brighter than the stage lights. I was there, front row, clutching a bouquet of roses so tight the thorns pricked my skin, my heart swelling as I watched my daughter, Emily, step forward. She looked so grown up in her cap and gown, her dark curls bouncing with every step, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found mine. She waved, her grin wide and full of the future. I waved back, my vision blurring with tears, my chest so full of love I thought it might burst. Then she turned to shake the principal's hand, and that's when I saw it. The banner behind her, huge and bold, the letters stitched in gold. Congratulations, class of 2025. We're proud of you, Emily. And Ethan. My breath caught. My blood turned to ice. Ethan. Who the hell was Ethan? The name hit me like a punch to the gut, stealing the air from my lungs, the color from my vision. My hands started to shake, the roses slipping from my fingers, petals scattering on the floor like shattered promises. I looked around, my pulse roaring in my ears, but no one else seemed to notice. The parents beside me were still clapping, still smiling, still oblivious. Only I was drowning, pulled under by a single word on a banner, a name I'd never heard before. Ethan. Emily's name I knew. Emily's face I recognized. But Ethan? Who was Ethan? A friend? A cousin? A brother? My mind raced, flashing through every memory, every conversation, every late-night talk Emily and I had ever shared. There was no Ethan. There had never been an Ethan. So why was his name up there, stitching itself into my daughter's moment like a secret I was never meant to know? The principal's voice droned on, but the words blurred into static. All I could see was that name, glowing like a warning. All I could feel was the cold, creeping dread slithering up my spine. Because deep down, I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was a message. And it was meant for me. If you want to know the truth, if you want to unravel this mystery with me, hit like and subscribe. Because this is only the beginning. And I have a feeling it's going to break me. The auditorium was still buzzing with applause and laughter, but to me it sounded like I was underwater, the noise muffled and distant, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. My fingers dug into the plastic chair as I forced myself to stand, my legs unsteady beneath me. I needed answers. Now. I pushed past the sea of proud parents, their smiles and congratulations feeling like knives as I made my way toward the stage. The principal, Mrs. Thompson, was still shaking hands with the last of the graduates, her face flushed with the success of another flawless ceremony. But when she saw me approaching, her smile faltered. She knew something. Mrs. Thompson, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Who is Ethan? Her eyes flicked to the banner behind her, then back to me, her expression tightening. Sarah, maybe we should talk about this in my office. No. My voice cracked like a whip. Now, who is Ethan? She hesitated, glancing at the crowd still milling around us. Then, with a sigh, she leaned in, her voice low. Ethan was Emily's twin brother. The world tilted. Twin brother? Twin brother? My mind reeled, memories flashing like a broken slideshow. Emily as a baby, just one tiny bundle in my arms, never two. The ultrasounds, the single heartbeat, the way the doctor had smiled and said, one healthy baby girl. There had never been a second child, never been an Ethan. But then why, Mrs. Thompson's voice pulled me back. Sarah, I'm so sorry, I thought you knew. The school board decided to honor him at graduation. He passed away last month. Passed away? Last month? My stomach twisted. What are you talking about? Emily doesn't have a twin. She's an only child. Mrs. Thompson's face paled. Sarah, A hand grabbed my arm, spinning me around. Emily stood there, her cap askew, her eyes red-rimmed and wide with panic. Mom, stop. I yanked my arm free, my voice rising. Emily, what is she talking about? Who is Ethan? Her lips trembled. Mom, please. Not here. Not here? My voice broke. Emily, Tell me what's going on. Right now. She looked around, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The crowd was starting to notice now, the murmurs growing louder, the smiles fading into curious stares. Emily grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward a side door, her grip tight enough to bruise. We burst into the empty hallway, the sudden silence deafening after the noise of the auditorium. Emily turned to face me, her face crumpling. Mom, I didn't want you to find out like this. Find out what? My voice was a snarl, raw with fear. Emily, you're scaring me. Who is Ethan? She swallowed hard, tears spilling down her cheeks. Ethan was my brother, my twin. The words hit me like a freight train. That's not possible, I whispered. There was never another baby, just you. Emily shook her head, pulling a crumpled tissue from her pocket. He was born with me, but he was sick. Really sick. Dad said he had this rare condition, and the doctors didn't think he'd live. He was in a special care home his whole life. Dad visited him all the time, but he didn't want you to know. He said it would break you. My knees nearly gave out. Mark had kept this from me for 18 years. Why? I choked out. Why would he do that? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. He said you'd already lost so much, with the miscarriages before me and then the divorce. He didn't want you to have to go through losing another child. The air left my lungs. The miscarriages. The years of trying, of hoping, of holding my breath every time I took a pregnancy test, only to lose another baby. The way Mark had held me while I cried, whispering, "We'll try again. We'll make it work." And then Emily had come, our miracle, our perfect, healthy girl. Or so I'd thought. I pressed a hand to my mouth, my mind racing. Where is he? Where's Ethan? Emily's eyes filled with fresh tears. He died last month, Mom. That's why Dad was so upset before the accident. He was going to tell you. He promised he would. But then he was gone. Just like that. Mark had died in a car crash 3 months ago, leaving me alone to raise Emily, to pick up the pieces of our shattered family. And now this? Now this? I stumbled back, my hand finding the wall for support. You knew, I breathed. All this time, you knew. Emily nodded, her voice breaking. Dad told me when I was 10. He said I was old enough to understand. He took me to see Ethan sometimes. He was... She swallowed hard. He was in a wheelchair. He couldn't talk or move much, but he could smile. And he always smiled when I visited. I slid down the wall, my legs giving out beneath me. My baby girl had been carrying this secret for 8 years. 8 years of visits, of lies, of pretending everything was normal while her father and brother lived a life I knew nothing about. And Mark, my husband, the man I'd loved, the man I'd trusted, the man who'd looked me in the eye every day and never once let slip that our daughter had a twin, that our family was built on a lie. Emily crouched beside me, her hand on my shoulder. Mom, please don't be mad. Dad just wanted to protect you. I looked up at her, my vision blurred with tears. Protect me from what? From my own child? She flinched like I'd struck her. From the pain. From losing someone else. I closed my eyes, my chest aching. I already lost him, I whispered. I lost him the second he was born, and you kept him from me. Emily's hand tightened on my shoulder. Mom, I'm so sorry. But it wasn't Emily I was angry with. It was Mark. It was the secret. It was the banner, the name, the truth staring me in the face while I sat there, clueless, smiling like a fool. I stood abruptly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. I need to see his records. I need to know everything. Emily hesitated. Mom, where are they, Emily? My voice was steel. She sighed, pulling a key from her pocket. Dad kept everything in a safe deposit box, the keys at home, in his old desk. I snatched the key from her hand, my mind already racing. I needed answers. I needed to see Ethan's face, to know his story, to understand why my husband had thought this secret was worth keeping. But as I turned to leave, Emily's voice stopped me. Mom, there's something else. I froze. She took a shaky breath. Ethan wasn't just sick. He was part of a study, an experimental treatment. And Dad was part of it too. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Emily's eyes met mine, filled with a fear that made my stomach drop. Dad wasn't just visiting Ethan, Mom. He was donating his bone marrow, his blood, whatever Ethan needed. And the doctors said... She trailed off, her voice barely a whisper. They said it was working, that Ethan was getting better, but then Dad got sick, and he never told anyone why. The world tilted again. Mark's business trips, his exhaustion, the way he'd come home some nights looking like he'd been through a war. It wasn't work. It was this. It was Ethan. And now he was gone. Both of them. Gone. I turned and walked away, my mind a storm of questions and betrayal. Because this wasn't just about a secret. This was about a life I'd never known. A son I'd never held. A husband who'd lied until his dying breath. And I was going to find out why. The drive home was a blur of rain-streaked streets and flashing neon signs, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. The key to the safe deposit box burned in my pocket like a brand, each mile between me and the truth feeling like a lifetime. I didn't remember parking the car or running through the downpour to the front door, but suddenly I was inside, the house too quiet, too still, like it was holding its breath. Mark's old desk sat in the corner of the living room, a relic from a life we'd built together, a life that now felt like a carefully constructed lie. I yanked open the top drawer, my fingers trembling as I found the small metal key tucked beneath a stack of old receipts. It fit perfectly in my palm, cold and heavy with secrets. The safe deposit box was at the bank downtown, a squat gray building that loomed like a tombstone in the fading light. The bank manager, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, eyed me warily as I slid the key across the counter. "I need access to box 472, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He hesitated, glancing at the clock on the wall. "We're about to close, ma'am." I didn't blink. "Then you'd better hurry." He sighed, disappearing into the vault, and returned a minute later with a long, narrow box. My heart hammered as he set it on the counter between us. "Take your time," he murmured, but I barely heard him. The world had narrowed to the box, to the lock, to the moment my fingers brushed the cold metal. The lid creaked open. Inside, neat stacks of papers were tied with red ribbon, labeled in Mark's precise handwriting. Ethan's medical records, treatment notes, legal documents. My breath caught as I pulled out the first folder. The top sheet was a birth certificate. Ethan James Mitchell, born the same day as Emily, same time, same weight. Twin A, it read. Emily was twin B. My hand shook as I flipped through the pages. Doctor's notes, test results, a diagnosis scrawled in bold. Spinal muscular atrophy type 1. Terminal, degenerative. Life expectancy, less than 2 years. But Ethan had lived 18. 18 years of silence, of secrets, of a life I'd never known. Then I found the photos. Ethan in a hospital crib, tiny and fragile, tubes snaking from his arms. Ethan in a wheelchair, his dark eyes bright, his smile crooked but full of life. Ethan with Mark, their heads bent together over a book, Mark's face softer than I'd ever seen it. And then one that made my chest crack open. Ethan with Emily, their hands clasped, their heads touching. Emily's smile radiant, Ethan's eyes full of love. My children, both of them. One I'd raised, one I'd never known. A letter was paper-clipped to the back of the last photo. My name was on the envelope. I ripped it open. "Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. And I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have trusted you with the truth. But I was so afraid of losing you, of breaking you. You'd already been through so much, and I couldn't bear to put you through more. Ethan was our son, our beautiful, brave boy, and he was sick. So sick. The doctor said he wouldn't make it past infancy, but he fought. He fought so hard. And Emily, she loved him so much. She was his world, and he was hers. I couldn't take that away from her. I couldn't take him away from you, not when you'd already lost so much. So I kept him close. I visited him every week. I read to him, I held him, I made sure he knew he was loved. And when the experimental treatment became an option, I didn't hesitate. I gave him everything I could, my time, my money, my blood, my bone marrow, whatever it took. But the treatment had side effects. It weakened me, and I never told you because I couldn't risk you stopping me. I couldn't risk losing him, or losing you. I thought I had more time. I thought I could tell you when Ethan was better, when we were all safe. But now I'm out of time. And I need you to know the truth. Ethan was our son, and he was perfect. Just like Emily. Just like you. Please forgive me. And please, Sarah, take care of our girl. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I loved them both. Always. Mark. The paper slipped from my fingers, drifting to the floor like a fallen leaf. My vision blurred, tears spilling down my cheeks as I pressed a hand to my mouth, a sob tearing from my throat. Mark had given everything for Ethan, his time, his health, his life, and he'd done it alone. But then my eyes snagged on a word in the letter: treatment. I flipped back through the folder, my pulse roaring in my ears as I found the clinical trial documents. Phase 1, gene therapy for spinal muscular atrophy. The dates matched up with Mark's business trips. The side effects listed read like a horror story: fatigue, immune suppression, organ failure. And then, buried in the fine print, a single sentence that made my blood run cold. Donor compatibility requires a direct familial match, parent or sibling. My breath hitched. Mark wasn't just a donor, Emily was too. I grabbed the next folder, my hands shaking as I found the consent forms. Emily's signature was there, shaky and childlike, dated just after her 16th birthday. I understand the risks, she'd written. I want to help my brother. My stomach twisted. She'd been a child, and Mark had let her sign that. He'd let her put herself in danger. But why? I dug deeper, my fingers fumbling through the papers until I found it. A single sheet, tucked at the back of the folder. A letter from the lead researcher, Dr. Richard Langley. Mr. Mitchell, the treatment is showing remarkable progress. Ethan's muscle function has improved by 40% in the last 6 months. However, the side effects on you are becoming concerning. We strongly advise discontinuing the donations and switching to a synthetic alternative. The risk of permanent damage is too high. Permanent damage. Mark had known. He'd known the treatment was killing him, and he'd kept going. For Ethan. For Emily. But then I saw the date on the letter. 3 months before Mark's death. And scrawled in the margin, in Mark's handwriting, "Find a match for Emily. She's the only one who can save him now." My heart stopped. Emily. My baby girl. She hadn't just donated bone marrow. She hadn't just given blood. She'd been tested as a full match. And Mark had been preparing to let her take his place. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the desk, my nails digging into the wood as I fought to stay upright. Mark had been willing to sacrifice Emily to save Ethan. He'd been willing to risk both of our children, and he'd never told me. He'd never given me the choice. A sound behind me made me whirl around. The bank manager was hovering in the doorway, his face pale. "Ma'am, we're closing. You need to—" "I need to see Dr. Langley," I snapped, shoving the papers into my bag. "Now." He stumbled back. I can't just—" I was already moving, my bag slung over my shoulder, my mind racing. If Emily had been tested as a match, then the records would be at the hospital. And if Dr. Langley was still running the trial, he'd have the answers I needed. But as I stormed out of the bank, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Emily. "Mom, where are you? I'm worried." I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. She didn't know. She couldn't know. Not yet. Not until I understood what Mark had done. What she had done. I typed back, my hands shaking. "I'm following a lead. I'll be home soon. I love you." Then I turned off my phone and hailed a cab. Because I was going to get answers, and I had a terrible feeling I wasn't going to like what I found. What would you do if you discovered your spouse had kept a child a secret for years? and put your other child in danger to save them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The hospital loomed ahead, its sterile white walls and cold fluorescent lights feeling more like a prison than a place of healing. My shoes squeaked against the linoleum as I stormed through the automatic doors, my heart hammering so loud I could barely hear the hum of the overhead lights. The receptionist barely had time to look up before I slammed my hands on the counter. "Dr. Richard Langley now." She blinked, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I need to see him. It's about Ethan Mitchell." Her face paled. "One moment." I didn't wait. I pushed past the desk, following the signs to the research wing, my mind racing with every step. The treatment, the side effects, the fact that Mark had been willing to sacrifice Emily to save Ethan. My hands clenched into fists, my nails biting into my palms. How could he have done that? How could he have looked me in the eye every day, knowing what he was planning? The doors to the research wing hissed open, and I found myself in a long, narrow hallway lined with framed certificates and sterile white doors. At the end, a nameplate glinted under the fluorescent lights. Dr. Richard Langley, Director of Gene Therapy Research. I didn't knock. I burst in. Dr. Langley was bent over a microscope, his white coat rumpled, his dark hair streaked with gray. He looked up, startled, as I stormed in. "Mrs. Mitchell?" "You knew," I snarled. "You knew Mark was killing himself to save Ethan, and you let him. You let him put Emily in danger, too." Dr. Langley sighed, removing his glasses and rubbing his eyes. "Sarah, please, sit down." "I don't want to sit down." My voice cracked. "I want answers. What did Mark do? What did he really do?" Dr. Langley hesitated, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Please, let me explain." I didn't move. "Explain what? How my husband lied to me for 18 years? How he let our daughter sign up for an experimental treatment that could have killed her?" Dr. Langley's face darkened. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" My voice was raw, my chest tight with fury and grief. He exhaled sharply. "Mark came to me when Ethan was diagnosed. He was desperate. The treatment was Ethan's only chance, but it required a donor, a compatible donor. Mark was a match, but the side effects were severe. He knew the risks, but he also knew Ethan wouldn't survive without it." I swallowed hard. "So he did it. He donated everything. His bone marrow, his blood, his life." Dr. Langley nodded. "Yes, but it wasn't enough. Ethan's condition was too advanced. The treatment slowed the progression, but it couldn't cure him. And Mark was deteriorating. His immune system was failing. His organs were shutting down. He knew he didn't have much time left." My vision blurred. "And Emily?" "Doctor." Langley's voice softened. "Emily was tested as a backup donor, but Mark never intended for her to go through with it. He just wanted to know if she could save Ethan if something happened to him. He never wanted her to be put in danger." I sank into the chair, my legs giving out beneath me. But he was preparing her for it. He was preparing her to take his place. Dr. Langley leaned forward. "Sarah, Mark loved your daughter. He loved both of your children. He was trying to protect them the only way he knew how." I closed my eyes, the weight of it all pressing down on me. Mark had spent years lying, sacrificing, fighting to keep our family together. And in the end, it had destroyed him. It had destroyed us. But then a thought struck me. "Ethan died last month," I whispered. "But Mark died 3 months ago. If the treatment was working, if Ethan was improving, why did he die?" Dr. Langley's face darkened. "Because Mark stopped the treatments." I froze. "What?" "He stopped donating. He refused to continue the treatment after a certain point. He said he couldn't risk Emily finding out. He said he couldn't let her take his place." My breath caught. "So Ethan died because Mark stopped?" Dr. Langley nodded. "He chose your daughter over his son. He chose you over his son." The room spun. Mark had let Ethan die to protect Emily, to protect me. The realization hit me like a freight train, stealing the air from my lungs. He hadn't just lied. He hadn't just sacrificed. He'd made a choice, a terrible, heartbreaking choice, and he'd carried it alone. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. I need to see Emily. Dr. Langley nodded. She's a strong girl, Sarah, just like her mother. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked out, my mind racing, my heart aching, because I knew what I had to do. Emily was waiting for me when I got home, curled up on the couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes red-rimmed, her face pale. "Mom?" I sat beside her, pulling her into my arms. "I know everything," I whispered. "About Ethan, about the treatment, about Dad." She stiffened. "Mom, No," I said, my voice breaking. "No more secrets. Not between us." She buried her face in my shoulder, her body shaking with sobs. "I didn't know, Mom. I didn't know Dad was stopping the treatment. I didn't know Ethan was going to die." I held her tighter. "I know, baby. I know." We sat like that for a long time, the weight of the past pressing down on us, the weight of the future stretching out before us. And for the first time in years, I felt like we were finally, truly together. Because the truth didn't just hurt, it healed. And we were going to be okay. The sun was setting as Emily and I stood side by side in the quiet cemetery, the golden light casting long shadows across the fresh earth of Mark's grave. The air smelled of damp soil and the faintest hint of rain, the kind of evening that felt like the world was holding its breath. I clutched a single white rose in my hand, my fingers trembling as I traced the letters on the headstone. Mark Mitchell, beloved husband and father. The words felt heavy, like they carried the weight of all the secrets he'd taken with him. Emily reached into her pocket and pulled out a small framed photo. Ethan and Mark, their faces close together, both smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. She placed it gently against the stone, her voice barely above a whisper. "He loved you, Dad, even when it was hard, even when it hurt." I swallowed the lump in my throat, my own voice shaking as I added, "And he loved you, Ethan. Both of you. More than anything." We stood there in silence for a long moment, the weight of everything we'd lost and everything we'd found, pressing down on us. The truth had been brutal. It had shattered the life we thought we knew, the family we thought we had. But it had also given us something unexpected. A chance to heal. A chance to know each other in a way we never had before. Emily turned to me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mom, what do we do now?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not just my daughter, but a young woman who had carried a burden no child should ever have to bear. "We live," I said softly. "We live for them. For Ethan. For your dad. We tell their stories. We keep their memories alive. And we make sure no one ever feels like they have to hide the truth again." She nodded, her hand finding mine and squeezing tight. "I want to start a foundation," she said, her voice stronger now. "For kids like Ethan, for families like ours, so no one has to go through this alone." I smiled through my tears. That's the most perfect idea I've ever heard. The weeks that followed weren't easy. There were still questions, still moments when the grief felt like it would swallow us whole. But there were good days too. Days when Emily and I would sit at the kitchen table, poring over old photos of Ethan, laughing through our tears as we remembered the stories Mark had told us about him. Days when we'd visit the hospital, talking to Dr. Langley about the foundation, about how we could turn our pain into something that might help others. Days when we'd just be mother and daughter, no secrets between us, no walls left to crumble. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the fireflies dance in the twilight, Emily turned to me with a small, sad smile. "Do you think Dad would be proud of us?" I reached over and took her hand. "I know he would be. Because that's what love does. It survives. It adapts. It finds a way to keep going, even when the world feels like it's falling apart. And in the end, that's what Mark had wanted for us. Not a life without pain, but a life where we could face that pain together." We held a memorial for Ethan a month later. Not in a church or a funeral home, but in the park where Mark used to take Emily and me for picnics when she was little. We invited the nurses who'd cared for Ethan, the doctors who'd fought for him, even Dr. Langley, who stood quietly in the back, his eyes wet with unshed tears. Emily read a poem she'd written, her voice steady and strong, and I shared stories about Mark, the way he'd laugh, the way he'd love, the way he'd fought for our family until his very last breath. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I looked around at the faces of the people who'd loved Ethan, who'd loved us, and I felt something shift inside me. The grief was still there. The loss still ached like an open wound. But so was the love. So was the hope. Because that's the thing about truth. It doesn't just break you, it remakes you. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it gives you a chance to build something even stronger than before. If this story resonated with you, I want to hear from you. Have you ever uncovered a family secret that changed everything? Or do you know someone who has? Share your story in the comments below, because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones we tell, but the ones we live. And maybe, just maybe, your story could help someone else find the courage to face their truth too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Because the best ones, they're just beginning. And yours might be next.